Everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com with another series of videos where I'm going to teach you a programming language. Again, the goal of each of these series that I've done in different programming languages isn't to teach you everything about everything in the language, but to kind of get you the core syntax of any language, which really comes down to variables and types, control flow, meaning ifs and loops, functions, and classes, except in a couple languages where there may not be classes and objects. So this language we're going to be doing is Ruby. Okay, Ruby is really popular, especially in the web space. It was basically really made popular by the Ruby on Rails framework, but also has other really popular frameworks such as Ruby Sinatra and Hanami, and many other Ruby frameworks for building web applications. But there are also frameworks out there for using Ruby to build mobile apps and using Ruby in other applications. So Ruby is a very popular language that you can do really cool stuff with, like any programming language, because its programming is cool. And the point I also want to get across all these videos is that once you learn one language and you kind of get comfortable with it, it's really easy to learn another language because it's the same ideas with a different wrapper. So here Ruby, okay, kind of like Python, variable declaration is pretty straightforward. I just put the name of the variable and I say it equals a variable. I don't have to put any semicolons. I don't have to do any types like JavaScript. There are no semicolons like Python, so that's all very nice. So a equals 5. So I go on to the next line, and I say puts a. So puts is the equivalent of printing something into the console. So here's a console. So I'm using a website called REPL.it. So REPL.it allows you to create an environment where you can practice or actually create stuff in pretty much any programming language. It's pretty awesome. You can get an account for free. Totally awesome. So I created a Ruby REPL. And basically the way it works is I can program here in this box, and then I can run it and see the output in this box. Okay, so a equals 5, and then I puts a. Puts prints onto the console. Okay, this is similar to console.log in JavaScript or print in Dart or Python, or console.writeline in C# or fprint in Go. Every language has something for you to print to the console, which is really important because when you're debugging code and you're making code, you're going to find yourself printing to the console very often. Cool. So with that, let's do some stuff. Okay. So if I put 5, another thing you need to know is that different types of variables. Okay. So when it's just a whole number, it's called an integer. When it's a 5 with a decimal, that's called a double or a float, depending on the context and the language. And when I put letters in quotation marks, this is a string. Okay? Except for the last one where I forgot the S. Puts. Okay, so you see, prints 5, 515, this is a string. And notice there's no quotation marks, because the quotation marks just tells it it's a string. Without the quotation marks, it thinks it's a series of variables. A variable called this is a string for variables. So we need the quotation marks. So puts 5, 515, cool, that's very neat. Okay. Now we can also do math, okay, with our numbers. So I can be like 5 plus 5. Oh, something went weird with REPL. Stopping, please wait. It got back on. So again, puts 5 plus 5 is going to return us the value of 10. Okay, what if I added strings together? So let's try that. Puts this is plus cool. This is cool. It just adds them together. This is what's called string concatenation. Okay, you can concatenate strings till the cows come home. What if I put a variable in the middle? Let's find out. So what if I said 5 plus a plus cool? It should say this is 5 cool. Let's see if that's the case. No implicit conversion. Ha! So we discovered something important. Ruby is type sensitive, okay, which JavaScript is not. Okay, so that means that I have to actually turn a into a string. Okay, so for example, in Python, I'd be able to just do int wrap my string variable in that function and would turn it into an integer. But I don't want to turn it into an integer. I want to turn it into a string. So let's see if this works. Generally, most languages would do it. If you need to convert the type of the variable, you're able to do this. Because again, when you first create the variable, when I said a equals 5, since I gave it a whole number, Ruby infers that this, oh, you gave me an integer, so this is an integer variable. And when I'm adding a bunch of strings together, it's like, wait, you didn't, this other thing you gave me, a, it's not a string. I can't mush all this stuff together. And and the language doesn't automatically assume that it wants me to convert it into a string. Okay. And that's why people like types, because sometimes something like that can help you catch an error of something you weren't trying to do. Okay. So this is where people kind of get conflicted with like JavaScript, because JavaScript oftentimes will be like, just kind of assumes what you're trying to do and just makes it work, which is really nice if you're a new programmer because you're not finding errors so often. But then when you're looking for a lot of errors, it gets really frustrating because you don't know where to look because your mistake isn't being caught at runtime. Okay, so this is a string. So let's see here. Does this work? Nope. Did you mean string? Do I need to capitalize it? Let's see. Yes. Okay, so you have to capitalize it to typecast. So see, that time it worked. So basically, I actually want to put a space here. See, this is 5, cool. So by running this function with a capital S string, I can convert that number into a string to concatenate. Cool. So we're learning things. There's also a variable type called bool or boolean, but this means true or false. There's only 2 boolean values, true and false. Okay, I could do that. So for example, puts 5 is 5 greater than 5. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to evaluate, when I use Boolean operators like the greater than symbol, it's going to evaluate the statement and then give me back true or false. So what's going to print on the string is not 5 greater than 5, but the result of 5 greater than 5. And as we both know, 5 is not greater than 5, so it should give me back false. And it gave me back false. And you can do this in all sorts of ways. Okay, so let me copy and paste it a bunch of times. Cool. So it could be 5 less than 5, which will still be false. Now equals, be careful. Because see, I used equals over here. So less than, but when I use one equal sign, that just means a sign. It means this number is going to be stored in this variable. That's what assignment means, okay? While if I want to test for is a equal 5 as a question, I need to put 2 equal signs. So does 5 equal 5, which is true. Then we can do greater than or equal than, less than or equal than, and then we can do not equal to, and then you can even do compound statements. So it's like, does 5 equal 5? And is 5 greater or equal than 5? If both statements are true, actually we'll do 5 greater than 5, then it will print out true. Or what if I don't want both to be true, but just one of them to be true? Then I can do or is these 2 little lines. Okay, so these are all my possible sort of Boolean expressions that you'll be using a lot. Okay, so as you can see here, if I go start from the bottom, 5 equals 5 or 5 greater than 5, one of those is true, so we get true. Now, one of them is not true, so when I put the and symbol, it gives me back false because one of them, they're not both true. Does 5 not equal 5? That's false. Is 5 less than or equal than 5? It does equal 5, so these 2 are going to be true. And then the 2 original false ones. That's your basic sort of variable structure. The next big topic is sort of control flow, meaning sort of how do I control a program from doing one thing versus another? Because it's not going to be just one big string of instructions. That's kind of boring. You know, when you play a video game, isn't there so many different possibilities? I can go down this path or down that path. And if I go down this path, this happens. That's what control flow is. Like, how do I control sort of how the program runs? So the core piece of control flow is an if. Okay, and the way an if works And in Ruby, this works pretty different, okay? Because usually you have, like, for example, in most programming languages, if, and in parentheses, you would put an expression, and then you would use curly brackets or something, okay? But in Ruby, no curly brackets. So what you have to do, and no parentheses. So I would say, if 5 is greater than 7, which it's not, then whatever I want to have happen is going to happen afterwards. But is it going to assume all my code going forward is part of the if it's true? No, I have to mark it by saying end. Okay, so by saying end, okay, then that's fine. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's test this out. Let's actually use it to make this a true statement. So 5 is less than 7. Then what it's going to do, and then good habit is to indent, so that way your code looks nice. So that way I know that when I put puts 5, I know that this is the result of this from this if statement. So if I run it, 5 less than 7 is true, so it should put 5. And it does. Now if I change that to 5 greater than 7, it's not true, so it should not run that code. And it doesn't. Okay, so that's the basic idea of sort of if statements. But what if you wanted something else to happen in case it was false? Then what I would do is I would create an else line. So if it's true, put 5, else puts 7. And then that's the end of my loop. So if I run that, okay, since that's currently false, it puts 7. But if I change this to true, and then if I put a puts 3 here, it's going to run either way because it's after not the loop, but the if statement. So 5, 3. It skips to 7 because 7 only happens if the if is false. So it's if, else, and then you end it with end. Okay, it's pretty cool. Okay, that's very readable, logical, makes sense. Okay, now other things to talk about are loops. Okay, and I must say that Ruby has one of the most interesting loops. In most languages, you have a while loop. Okay, that's not new. So again, if I were to say, so usually the way you would set up a while loop is let's say a equals 0. Okay, and we'll say while a is less than 10. While a is, you don't have to put anything. It just assumes you're doing a new command every time you go to a new line. Puts a. Let me indent that. And then we're going to increment a. So this is the increment operator. There's increments to plus signs, decrement is to minus lines. It just means add 1 or subtract 1. So I'm going to say, hey, after you puts a, add 1 to a. So then a will be worth 1 more. It actually changes the value of the variable. And then that's the end of the loop. Okay. And then when it gets to the end of the loop, it'll go back to the top, check to see if my statement is still true, and if it is, it goes through it again. So in that case, a is 0, that's true, because it is less than 10, so it's going to put a, add 1 to it, then it's just going to keep doing that until a eventually is 10, and a is no longer less than 10. So in that case, it stops. Unexpected keyword end. Why is that unexpected? Okay, while a is less than 10, puts a plus plus, and do I have this? No, it's on the right side. So this should work. Let me maybe if I made some of the earlier code is interrupting. Okay, and Ruby is something that generally this is an interpreted language. Okay, I mean you can compile Ruby code, but is it mainly interpreted because most web languages are interpreted. And generally the way you can tell is that there's no main function. I don't have to wrap all my code in some function that has some sort of that's somehow derived from main. So like Python and JavaScript, the code just starts really at the top. So let's try this again. A equals 0, run. Or keyword end. Am I spelling end wrong? I don't think I'm spelling end wrong. Okay, now the reason why that was giving me a problem was because of the increment operator. Apparently, that doesn't seem to work in Ruby. So incrementing and decrementing, you're just gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is you take the variable a and say it equals itself plus one. A equals a plus one. So if we do that, then the loop runs the way it's supposed to. Okay, so it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's a while loop. Now, usually, pretty much all programming languages, you have a while loop that runs if true. There's no loop that runs if false, but you actually have it in Ruby. I think this is the only language that actually has this, and it's called an until loop. So basically, until this is true, it will not run the loop. Okay, so long as it's false. So let's change it to a equals 10. So long as that's not true, it'll keep running the loop. It should pretty much give me the same result, which it does. Okay, so that's interesting. That's new. Okay, so I always found that pretty interesting. And otherwise, you've got our good old friend for loops. Okay, except for loops work more like an iterator in Ruby. Okay, so basically what you do is you create like a range and it runs the loop that many times. So the way it works is for I in, and we create a range. We'll say I use the range operator, which is 3 dots, 2 dots, okay, and say 1 to 10. Okay, so that means it's going to basically run through this 10 times. So it's going to run the loop one time for everything in the range of 1 through 10. Every time it runs through the loop, I is going to equal the number in that it's at. So first time I equals 1, second time I equals 2, and I can use that as a variable. So I can sit there and say put I. Okay, so watch what happens. It's going to run 10 times and print I each time. So it prints 1 through 10. So that's just another way to loop all through your code. Okay, so those are a lot of the basic tools you need to kind of work through to work through your code. Okay, you add numbers, you add strings, you have to do stuff several times. In the next video, we'll go through some more stuff like functions and classes. But I'll see you guys then. Have a great day and enjoy.